Hi, everybody. It's Lisa from the Ayurveda Experience. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the very first day of our week-long World Ayurvedic Health and Lifestyle Summit. And every single day this week, we're going to have a different expert to talk with you about a different topic, and it's going to be amazing. So have your questions ready. You can write them in the little chat box to your right, and we'll answer your questions as best as we can. What we're going to do, the format is we're going to chat. The expert and I will chat for about 45 minutes, and then we'll have questions at the end. But if things come up and that's relevant to what we're talking about, I'll try to get to your questions as we go as well. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of people from Ecuador, Boston, Little Rock, oh my gosh, Minnesota, Minneapolis, wow, Virginia. We've got so many, California, of course, my home state, Portland, Oregon. This is great. Tons of people joining us. The Netherlands, wow. And Johannesburg, South Africa, Canada, Jersey. Oh, so many great friends from all over the world. Vancouver, Pennsylvania. So good to see you guys. Thanks so much for being here. So right now I'd like to introduce you to our expert for today, and this is Dr. Mark Vinick. And Mark is a dear friend of mine from way back. It's interesting because the Ayurvedic community is still small, so pretty much everybody knows everybody in this industry, and it's really great because we all care so much about it, and what we have in common is that we want to share it with the world. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about how you found Ayurveda. How did it come into your life?
Oh, Lisa, you're embarrassing me. You're about to age me. I first heard the term Ayurveda over 40 years ago when I was studying in Europe with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he spoke about Vedic medicine, about Ayurveda. And as soon as I heard the word, I recognized that this is something I want to learn. There really wasn't anything available here at that time. And simply because of my experiences in meditation and doing yoga were so profound at that time, I realized that if this Ayurveda, if this Vedic yogic medicine is half as powerful and as profound as the experience I've had already learning yoga, asana, yoga philosophy, and meditation, I'm sold. I'm going for it. Unfortunately, there really wasn't anywhere to study. He wasn't teaching it, and there really wasn't anywhere to study it. One of the first teacher, Vasant Lad, came to the U.S. and started teaching here a few years later. So that was, and then since then, I've read Vasant Lad's material, studied with him, studied California College of Ayurveda. My longtime teacher is Vaidya R.K. Mishra with the SVA Ayurvedic tradition. It goes back to the beginning of Ayurveda. So I pretty much study with everyone and grasp everything that I can and incorporate it to my own life experience.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say the Maharishi because I think a lot of people came from that like lineage, so to speak, you know, that the Maharishi really introduced Ayurveda to the United States first and foremost, right?
Yes, yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, and Deepak Chopra learned with the Maharishi, and that's how I learned from Deepak. So it kind of, we're coming down a couple different generations now. But you're,
and also my longtime teacher, Vaidya Mishra, was brought over here by Maharishi. He did some writing for them, and Maharishi actually saw it and goes, Who wrote this? Who wrote this material? This is great. Get him over here. And so they did, and he had sent him over to the U.S. here to be director of research for his Ayurvedic product line. That's where he got here.
Yeah, I love Dr. Mishra. He's fantastic. So now you're a chiropractor in Southern California. How do you incorporate Ayurveda into your practice?
As much as I can. I have patients that come primarily from the chiropractic realm seeking chiropractic, and that's what I deliver. I specialize in more of non-force techniques. If they have questions relating to diet and lifestyle, then I feel their pulse and I answer according to the Ayurvedic recommendations. There are other people that have more significant issues, health issues, autoimmune, digestive, asthma, whatever. And they're coming specifically for Ayurveda, and so I begin with an Ayurvedic consult and then take it from there. Sometimes someone coming for Ayurveda, when we resolve that issue, they may want to have some chiropractic treatment, and others that come for chiropractic, when I start giving them dietary and lifestyle recommendations from Ayurveda, they're enticed and they want to follow through with some Ayurvedic recommendations.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I think once people learn about Ayurveda and how easy it is to use in their life, you know, they don't go back because they love it so much. Have you found that to be the case?
Absolutely. You know, what I found is that you either love Ayurveda or it just doesn't interest you. It has a certain pull, and when that pull is there, it's magic, and
Yes.
you become consumed with it because you realize here is the crystallized essence of the knowledge of what our life is, a day-to-day experience, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And
Right.
so that it just it pulls us to that knowledge. It's all attractive. All the Vedic sciences are like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, you know, the reason I wanted to talk to you about family stuff is because I think that as parents, we set an example for our children, and that we can teach them some of these Ayurvedic principles simply by the way we live our lives, and hopefully pass them on to our kids so that they learn at a young age how to live a happy lifestyle.
Are you saying that adage, do as I say, not as I do, that's not a good way of bringing up your children? I would agree.
No, do as I do is what I'm saying. Right? Do as I do.
Not do as I say. No, you know, because if parents tell you to do one thing and then you see them doing something else, there's no credibility there.
Right, right. So I think parents need, first of all, I guess, to practice an Ayurvedic lifestyle themselves and model it for their kids, right?
Yes, yes.
So what are some of the simple ways that we can do that?
Well, number one, I think maybe Ben Franklin must have read some Ayurveda somewhere, because there's that quote that's contributed by him: early to bed, early to rise makes one healthy, wealthy, and wise. And Ayurveda recommends going to sleep early, preferably before 10 o'clock, because that's the cycle of day that's ruled by the heavy and the dulling qualities of kapha dosha. And so the mind and the body have already begun to settle down at that time. And so as long as our physiology is not overly stimulated by some electromagnetic or other stress, it'll be easier to fall asleep at the time, and the sleep is more restful and more healing. Now, if for some reason, due to work or family obligations or something, it's not possible to go to sleep by 10, even earlier is better, like 9, but at least be consistent. So if 10 doesn't work, then if 11 is the only thing you can do, then at least be consistent. Don't go back and forth one day. We need to establish some system there that the body is used to. You know, homeostasis sets in when the psychophysiology is used to those established patterns. It's like nature. You know, we can plot. We know when the sun rises and the sun sets thousands of years in the past, and we can project that thousands of years in the future. And if we attune our individual cycles, our own individual biorhythms with the larger biorhythms of nature, we gain tremendous strength and stability from that. And that's so important. And that one thing, going to sleep early, getting up early, preferably with the rising sun or slightly before. That cycle of day is ruled by Vata dosha, and that enlivens the mind and the body with fresh, energetic, creative, and inspiring energy. And beginning our day at this time helps align our own internal biorhythms with these natural energies that are present at that time.
Right, absolutely. So routine, that's like a key word in Ayurveda. Routine, routine, routine. Get on the good routine and be in
Yes.
harmony with nature. However, a lot of people in the West, we have to check our Facebook and we have to do our emails and everything. We're on the computer sometimes late at night, working very long hours, bringing our work home with us because we have all this technology that is putting us into bad habits. So what advice do you have for people who feel like, this is my life. I'm going to be on the computer as long as it takes to get my work done, and then I'll go to bed.
Technology is here to stay. It's part of our life, and we all use it. We all, it has advantages and disadvantages. But one of the disadvantages is, we need downtime. Even our technologies, our cell phones and our batteries, they don't run 24/7. We have to shut them down. And likewise, we have to charge our own batteries. So what I'm recommending to people now is a electromagnetic free zone. At least 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Don't go on your cell phone. There's a lot of reasons, because it activates the mind, but also that electromagnetic stress from the technology is there.
Yeah.
Ayurveda speaks about that. In the oldest, most authoritative text on Ayurveda, the Charak Samhita, Charak wrote 2,500 years ago. He observed that when electricity struck a village, if it happened to hit a hut, a family, well, they were all destroyed. But it affected the entire village for 6 months afterwards. And he referred to that as a poison. He called it Indra Vajra Vijanya Vish, a type of ama, a type of toxin. And it's a poison that comes from Indra's thunderbolt. They personified all the forces of nature. So the lightning was a thunderbolt from Indra, the king of the gods. And so for whatever reason, he was angry, who knows what. And so that produced an electromagnetic stress. Now, he didn't know about cell phones and computers and whatnot, but that same Indra Vajra Vijanya Vish that radiates out from the thunderbolt is there in our technology. And so the same effects that it produced then, it can produce now. And we're seeing it. People are, it's a fire, and people are burning out from that.
Right. High in Pita and stuff because of that. So there's imbalance is going on. We do have a question from Anu. She's asking, should our bedtime routine change with the seasons, or should we keep to those same times, the 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.?
That's an interesting question. It should pretty much remain the same during the seasons. The exception possibly is if you're in an area that acknowledges daylight savings time, because it's an hour off. So if I go to sleep at 11 now here in Southern California, in November it's really 10 o'clock.
Oh, I see. Okay, interesting.
So there's no harm in going to sleep now at 10 to be consistent, because it's really 9 and 6 or 7, whatever that is. So it's even better to do that. But you can vary for daylight savings time. Otherwise, if you're not in an area that acknowledges that, then just be consistent.
Right, consistency is important. And also the routine applies to our meals and our eating habits as well. So can you address that a little bit?
I will go back to the first one during the seasons, like in the summer. The sun comes up earlier. So ideally, the best time to wake up, according to yoga philosophy, is the hour of Brahman, Navaswan, which is about an hour and a half before sunrise. So in that regard to her question, yes. The earlier the sun rises, the earlier you want to wake.
I see. Okay. And when you do your meditation and everything, right?
Yes, yes, that's a perfect time to meditate.
That's part of our routine, right? Our
Yeah.
daily routine. And these are good habits we can get our kids into. This is perfect kind of things we get our kids into.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And the
So now,
second part of your question,
the
the
talk about the meals and our eating habits and our eating routine. How does that work?
eat when we're hungry. So
That's
some body types, like more kapha, they're not necessarily hungry when they first wake up. Maybe just some water or some tea or something. Others, more vata or the fire of pitta, they need some fuel early. So it's
okay.
important to acknowledge that. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat if you're not hungry. So breakfast, if you have it, should take you to lunch so that
Okay.
you're not famished by the time you have lunch. Lunch, that 1 o'clock period is when pitta, the fire element, the fuel element, is highest. So that's when our digestive system can accommodate the largest meal, and that should be the largest meal of the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So don't overeat. But that should be the largest meal. Ayurveda recommends not eating till you're stuffed.
Right, right. Like what's the 50%, 75%? Different people tell me different things.
Yes. In some of the yogic texts, it says eat, half an angle, half a handful. But I think
Ah,
that applies if you're just doing yoga all day long. Easy
right.
yoga, meditating. But we're in the world, we have more fire. We need more, it's cold, we need more fuel. So my understanding is about 75% solid food and about 25% room temperature or warm water.
Okay.
So when we sit down for lunch, we should be hungry.
Hmm.
As we're eating, we're starting to feel a little more satisfied, but we're not necessarily full. So we continue eating until that point of satisfaction. Now,
Hmm.
if you eat until what the problem is that the apostat valve in the hypothalamus takes about 15 minutes to register satiety. So you don't really know if you're full until about 15 minutes after you've eaten.
That's
So
right.
if you eat until you're full, 15 minutes later you can realize, oh my God, I'm at 125%. I'm stuffed.
Yeah.
Now, Ayurveda says if you do that on a regular basis, that is a major cause of disease.
Right, right. Okay. So one way we could translate this into our families is not giving kids like a huge plate full of food and also not sitting there telling them you're going to finish your plate, right? That's kind of what I used to hear growing up is you're going to finish that whole plate of food, or no dessert. So of course I finish it and I'm stuffed and then I have dessert and I'm even more stuffed, right? So
I
that's not
know.
the idea, right?
Yes. Yes.
Good. Okay. So I think that it's difficult for us to do the largest meal at lunch with our Western routine, but there's workarounds for it. What do you do to have your largest meal
I,
at lunch?
I bring a wide mouth food thermos to work, and
Hmm.
I cook it at home at the same time I'm preparing a light breakfast.
Uh-huh.
And the food is, I cook usually some type of dal, lentil, or mung bean, and I
Hmm.
cook it for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then as that's cooking, I'm chopping up some vegetables, throw that in, throw a little ghee, a little
Hmm.
coconut oil, throw some spices, a little bit of Himalayan salt, stir it all together, cook the vegetables for just 2 or 3 minutes, maybe at the very end, throw in some leafy greens, some spinach, stir it, and while it's still boiling hot, I pour it to the top of my wide mouth food thermos, seal it instantly, and there you
Hmm.
go. I used to go out for lunch all the time, and the fastest, not fast food, but the fastest sit down halfway decent restaurant, even if I'd walk there, it was an hour. Walking there, waiting to get seated, get the menu, place my order, wait for the food, eat the food, wait for the check. even if I'm in a hurry trying to push that along and then rush back, it's pretty close to an hour. And it was a stressful hour.
Oh, yeah.
This way, I have real food, organic, fresh, warm, not very expensive. I
Yeah.
eat it in about 15 minutes. I sit for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I get up and I go for a little walk. And in a half
Yeah.
an hour, I've had a wonderful, relaxing, nourishing meal.
Exactly. And you know where the ingredients came from, and you're cooking it with love, and you don't have to worry about the letter in the restaurant window and all that, right? And you're
Yeah,
probably saving money too.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Peter is asking, when should we eat dinner? Like, how much time should we leave between dinner and sleep?
Well, if we go to sleep, Ayurveda recommends in bed before 10. You want to finish your dinner 3 hours before bed. And
Okay, so
so
7.
you want to finish by 7. And dinner should
Right.
be lighter than lunch, because if you have a heavy dinner, that food doesn't digest well and it doesn't break down thoroughly. It creates toxins in the digestive system, and over a period of time, that has a whole host of undesirable health detriments.
Right, right. And a lot of people, you know, they're talking about eat 6 meals a day or whatever because it's easier on your digestion, but that's not what Ayurveda says at all, right?
No, not necessarily.
We want 3 meals and time to digest in between, right?
A good yes, because if you're eating 6 meals, chances are you haven't digested the previous one before you're snacking on something else. That
Right.
was my error for years, and that creates toxins and weight gain and decreases the digestive fire. A good
Right.
way to look at the digestive system is visualize a campfire, and you have to have a pretty good size fire, and you put an adequate log on that fire, and it burns the log, produces heat and light, which is what we want, and the log is reduced to ash. Well, if we're hungry, our digestive fire is high, is strong, we eat a substantial meal, it breaks it down to nutritional ash, which goes into the blood and rebuilds our cells. If the fire is low on a campfire and you put too large of a log on, it smolders and goes out,
Yeah.
and you have a
Right.
half burnt log, which is toxic. Same thing with the food. It becomes not fully digested, and the term for that is or half digested, which is a toxin. So it's a first stage of toxicity. So it's good to visualize that the food in front of us is like an offering. We're offering it
Right.
to the fire within our bodies, within our digestive system. It gets consumed by that fire and it becomes our body. That food is our body. If that food is not appealing on every level, on the color, the aroma, the sight, the taste, the smell, then some part of that produces an undesirable effect in our psychophysiology. So
Absolutely.
that is our body.
Right. Right. We have a lot of questions coming in, specific questions about food and digestion and everything. I just want to remind everybody that we have a full day just on food with Dr. Manisha Kirsagar, and we have a full day just on digestion with Dr. Suhas Kirsagar. So I don't want to get too off track and just do food with Dr. Vinick because we have so much else to cover with him as well. So, Mark, you talked a little bit, I think, when you're talking about the food and the taste and the color and the aroma and everything. It's engaging those 5 senses, right? How
Yes.
do those 5 senses come into play in Ayurveda? And I'm going to be thinking about how can we use this to teach our kids some lessons about Ayurveda.
There's that saying, you are what you eat. But we're more than what we take in through the sense of taste. We also take in impressions through all the other senses, through sight, through sound,
Mhm.
through smelling, through touch. It's important to learn to distinguish between harmonious and disharmonious use of the senses. So when you're watching a movie, is that creating harmony and love and light and bliss? Or is it creating fear and panic and stress hormone?
Right.
Um, if we're getting massage, is it pleasurable? Is it so deep tissue that we want to scream and we can't wait for it to be over? I know
We've all
there's a
been
whole
there, right?
right. There's the whole understanding of deep tissue, is beneficial, it breaks down scar tissue and so on. But on another level, it is very unpleasant, and it's a toxic experience that we're taking in. It's like bad food. So it's important to distinguish between what's nurturing a harmonious force and what's not,
Yeah.
because you know, we can take in disharmonious. If we eat bad food over a period of time, it's going to show up on our body, on our health.
Absolutely.
Classic example, one of my first patients years ago was a police officer, and she worked in the violent crimes unit. She was a graphic artist. Her job, 24/7, whenever she was called, day or night, middle of eating, movies, whatever, whenever there was a violent crime, she went to the scene and drew it on paper. In other words, she's meditating on that horrible
Oh,
scene.
yeah.
And the emotions and the trauma, and it's very traumatic. And doing this year in and year out had such a toxic effect on her. She had a very severe case of fibromyalgia, which is
Wow.
toxic throughout all the fibrotic and the muscle tissue throughout the body.
Right.
You think about it. It's on your mind, and you're eating. Those images are flashing back.
Right.
You're reminding yourself of it. You're writing the report. You're thinking about it. That's a classic example of disharmonious impressions through the sense of sight. And
Right.
she went out on disability. Probably the worst case of fibromyalgia I'd ever seen.
Wow. Yeah, and look at what our kids are looking at when they're playing those violent video games, when they're watching, forget movies, even if we can, monitor what they're seeing at the movies because we're paying for the ticket. There's stuff on TV that shouldn't be on during family hour, and kids are just seeing it anyway, right? So
Absolutely.
we really have to be diligent as parents. And I just saw something today, a little video on Facebook that somebody posted that I thought was interesting. It was sponsored by a granola bar, of all things. But they talked with 3 different generations. And the grandpa, they said, well, what did you do when you were a kid? How did you play? And the grandpa was like, oh, we played kick the can, and we were playing baseball, we were running around the block, and we went to so-and-so. And then the next generation of parents were something similar. Oh yeah, jump rope and hopscotch, and we were outside with the kid, with our friends playing in the park. And then their kids, what do? Oh, we play video games. We text. We're on the phone. There's such an imbalance here. They need to get outside and get in nature, right?
Not long, a few years ago, that hit me so strongly. I was at the gym, and they had a daycare center. There were only 3 children there. One was about 4 or 5, and he was playing on the ground with the woman who was supervising. There were other 2 young kids, probably about 10, and they were on computers playing video games, and they're right next to each other, and they're leaned forward, and their head is cranked like that, and their arms are on the mouse, and they're going like this with their head the whole time. And it was intense. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So there's no communication. He's right next to someone. There's no communication, no verbal communication skills. His neck is going to get deranged. That awkward position when you're tight and stressed for long periods of time predisposes towards degenerative arthritis. Carpal tunnel. in the hand, and the nervous system just shaking and moving and focused, that intense thing. I'm thinking, it's sad to say, but I'm glad I'm the age I am, because when these kids hit middle age, they're no longer going to be productive members of society. They're going to be on disability. And it's maybe a pessimistic thing to say. It's just my observation, and it's what I've seen. They're not going to be able to contribute. They're going to be pulling. They're going to be dependent on others, and it's not a very fulfilling life. And they don't know any better. And it's our responsibility as parents and adults to educate them and to set boundaries. I mean, we've all seen children whose parents didn't set boundaries. Now, I'm not saying, physical punishment, but at least the idea is instilled so the child knows, this I can do, this I can't do. Those children keep testing boundaries, testing boundaries, testing boundaries, until at some point the legal system sets the boundaries for them. I've seen that time and time again. So it is our responsibility to, in a kind, loving, nurturing, supportive, positive way, set those limits so that those children have an abundance of harmonious impressions coming in, and minimize, can't eliminate, but minimize the disharmonious impressions from the world.
Right. And, I think Ayurveda, one great thing I love about Ayurveda is it teaches us about who we are and what we're made of. So if we know that for ourselves as parents, we can help teach our children that. So that when we're outside, we can have an exercise of, let's find the 5 elements. Let's find fire. Where do we see fire? Where do we see water? Where do we see earth? Where do we see air? Where do we see space? And remind our kids that this is what they're made of. They are the same as all these things in nature. And that the further they get away from nature, the further they're getting away from themselves. And then they forget who they are. Do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely, because those 5 elements make up our physical body, our mind, our emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vedic knowledge takes it a little further. It may be a little esoteric, but I'm going to say it anyway. We all have physical bodies, we all have minds and emotions. But Vedic knowledge, yoga philosophy, Ayurveda says we are not our physical bodies alone. We are not our mind. We are not our emotions alone. It says, Ekam nityam vimala matchalam sarvadi sakshi bhutam. You are the one, the eternal, the pure, the immovable, the very being of that which is the witness of all intellects. And that's the essence. There's this inner silence, bliss, expansive silence in the midst of activity. And the goal of yoga philosophy, the goal of Ayurveda, is for spiritual growth, self-knowledge, state of enlightenment, where we have that inner state of silence and all-pervading peace and bliss within, at the same time that we're actively in the world. That's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and if we could, I don't know, rewind the clock or just go back to nature, but we're in this modern society, you know what I mean? So it's more difficult for us, and each of us is dealing with stress in some sort of way, shape, or form. What does Ayurveda say about stress?
To diminish it, it's necessary, and some of it's healthy. It spurs us to activity. But it's important to connect with nature on a regular basis. One of the Ayurvedic recommendations is early morning, go for a walk, bare feet, in contact with the dew on the grass. The marma point there, the tal hridaya marma, on the sole of the foot with the morning dew of the grass, it has a very healing, grounding, profound effect. It's important.
Yeah, that's a good tip for people. I think we don't go barefoot enough, and it's kind of grounding. It gets us back to that earth thing. So if you guys are out there making a list of tips, Number one, go barefoot as much as possible. Good. What else?
There's another thing that I found. Well, it's important to plan for the future. It's important to take one day at a time, if I can borrow that phrase from AA, from Alcoholics Anonymous. One day at a time. Each morning, write down a list of what you need to focus on and accomplish for that day. Now, distractions occur throughout the day. They always do. But when you have the list, refer back to your list to keep you focused on what's important. Remember, being busy is not the same as being productive. This way, at the end of the day, we'll have a sense of accomplishment because we've accomplished something. Because I don't know how many days, how many years, how many decades I would go into work and I have so much to do, and if I didn't focus on them and do them right away, all the work would come, the phone calls, this appointment, that appointment, and I'd be really busy, and you know the day was full. At the end of the day, I go, oh, I haven't done those things that I really needed to do. So focus on things, and then when you're sitting and you're spacing out and trying to catch your breath and drink some water or something, look at that list and, oh yeah, it'll only take me 5 minutes to do this. And that way you can check it out. That helps.
Present, because I think here in the West, we're a nation of workaholics. We're working, and it's too much work. We're out of balance in that way. So if we could work more efficiently, like you're saying, instead of just being busy, you know, then we would allow ourselves to have more of that balance.
Absolutely. So, I think, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so what other tips can you give us here? This is good.
Get up in the morning, do some stretching, some exercise, some yoga, meditate, visualization, walking. All these things are crucial. If for some reason I sleep in, maybe I stay up too late or I sleep in, and I don't start the day that way, the day just isn't as good.
Yeah.
It's essential to nurture yourself right from the beginning, to take those few hours. That's why if you get up and the first thing you go check your emails, which are going to be there anytime, but if you do that, you get caught up in that, and you're not nurturing yourself. It's important to nurture yourself. That's the importance in rising early, because those hours in the beginning of the days when we're less likely to be interrupted by others. So that's when we want to nurture ourselves to really nature.
Super important for parents and kids, because those morning times, I know, because I'm a mom and I know what it's like trying to get them out of bed, brush your teeth. Did you do your homework last night? Eat breakfast, pack lunches. Do you have your stuff to take to school in your backpacks? Let's hurry, we're late for carpool. I mean, it's like rush. But if you get up at the correct time and you have your routine and you know every day this is what you're going to do, take a few moments for quiet time, right, before you start the day so the head is clear. I think that's a lot less stressful for families, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no substitute for that nurturing, and nurturing comes from the family. That's where it begins, you know, with the food, with the lifestyle, and with that connection, that emotional connection with your family, people you love. That's so important to start the day.
Right. And William, one of our listeners here, he's saying that he does this exercise and meditate and abhyanga at the end of the day. So do you recommend that? Do you recommend morning or evening or both?
Traditionally, it's done primarily in the morning, but then a little bit in the evening too. The evening should be, you know, less intense, more relaxing. Maybe if you have a yoga asana practice, then the evening asanas should be very calming and relaxing, not energizing, not stimulating. Some people are able to meditate just before they go to sleep. Others find it keeps them awake. My own experience, I prefer to meditate before dinner, before breakfast and before dinner. If
Yeah,
I
that,
do a few minutes in the if I do a few minutes in the evening before bed, my own experience was that I can, as long as I go to sleep immediately after meditating. Like for meditation, stand up, lie down in bed. If I
yeah,
get up and do something for 5 minutes, then because of the deep rest that I gained in meditation, that deep restful state, I start to get energy and it keeps me awake. But if I take that deep rested state and then I just go to sleep immediately, boom, I fall asleep immediately and it's much deeper, much more profound.
good. Um, yeah, I always learned it meditate sun up, sundown. And then, sun up before breakfast, sundown before dinner. So that's
Yes.
my practice. Yeah.
Because you can't meditate if you have a full stomach either.
Right, right. You meditate before you, not after you eat. And
Right.
also before you exercise, not after you exercise, right? Because otherwise your body's busy trying to calm down from the exercise.
It depends on the exercise. If it's an easy exercise, then I think it can be done before.
Okay.
But if it's a very hard, stimulating exercise, or if you're an athlete and you're exercising all day long, then you definitely want to meditate before.
Right. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, so one of our listeners here is in college, and she's saying, do you have any tips for college students? Because, college students, they have kind of crazy routines, living in the dorms with all these people, late night studying. What would you say to college students who are trying to live an Ayurvedic lifestyle?
Good luck. I'm remembering my own college experience, although I will qualify that. In college, back in the late 60s, early 70s, I learned yoga and I learned meditation. And so that's a great question because I experienced complete opposite from being the social animal that I was in college. I loved to study, I loved to write, and I loved to party. And I did well in school, but I paid the price. And when I started doing yoga asana first, I couldn't believe how much better I felt. Getting up early in the morning, going to the park, and doing this was amazing. And then 6 months later, I learned meditation, PM at that time. And that was such a profound contrast. I couldn't believe it. And that experience, it took me a few months, but it completely changed my life. It took me away from that whole party, stay up late atmosphere to wanting to get up early, and I couldn't wait to sit down and meditate, do some yoga and meditate. And when 5 o'clock came, I couldn't wait to go home and to sit down and meditate. It was this burning desire because it was just so enjoyable. So it is possible to do it. You have to surround yourself with people and situations that are conducive to that lifestyle. But we've all seen people fall apart in college, which is sad right at the beginning of your life. And some people don't. Yeah, it's sad. So you want to prevent that.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I remember my college years, my diet was pretty much pizza.
Leftover.
Yeah, and I didn't know about Ayurveda, but like you, college is where I learned how to meditate. And that was kind of my gateway to, I have options here. I can have a healthier diet. I can, sleep better hours and everything. I mean, the 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda are, first of all, food, right? And second, sleep. And third, activity, which is very broad. Exercise, relationships, the work you do, that kind of thing. So one of our listeners is asking about sleep. She says, what do you do if you wake up in the middle of the night Should you toss and turn and try to get back to sleep, or should you get up and do something else?
It depends what it is that woke you up.
Ah.
Um, is it a Vata type of insomnia? Is it a Pitta type of insomnia? It depends. For me, what would work for me is I would always have some small, maybe homemade oatmeal raisin cookies, very small ones. And I would eat one or two. Can't eat a lot because it'll interfere with your sleep. One or two, and then a little bit of water. And that has a soothing, sweet, nurturing quality that decreases both Vata and Pitta. And allows me to go to sleep right away after that. But you don't want to get up and start doing a lot of activity, because then that'll really distract from the sleep. Putting on a light interferes with your ability to fall back to sleep. Going on a computer will dramatically interfere with your ability to fall back asleep and get that rest that's essential.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think people, you know, a lot of people I know, they use their phones as the alarm clock to wake up. And I tell them, first of all, don't do that. Put the phone in the other room so you're not getting those cellular, you know, transmissions. And just buy yourself an old-fashioned alarm clock if you need one, you know, or leave the curtains open. That's what I do, so that the sunlight wakes you up in the morning and you're getting off anyway.
Yes, I do that too. So the early morning sun wakes me up. You know, I got a new cell phone not long ago, and somehow it was set so I was getting all these notifications. It was dinging, ding, 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 and I noticed I was getting stressed out. I go, what's this? Well, someone sent me this, and I go, wait a second, I had this function. It was doing like that for a few days, and it was stressing me out. And I remembered, oh, I think I shut that function off before because it drove me crazy, and I shut it off, and I was so happy because it would only speak to me when someone was phoning me. I didn't need to know when I posted some crazy thing on Facebook responding to something I saw, and then, you know, 100 people respond to it. I don't need to hear that ding, 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 ding. And I'm trying to do something else. So shut all those functions down.
Mary is asking, explain the difference between a Vata and Pitta imbalance when you wake up in the night. So it would be more like Vata is having the recurring thoughts, is that it? And Pitta is what?
A racing mind would be one of the symptoms of Vata. Inability to fall asleep initially typically is Vata. If you're able to fall asleep and then you wake up at, let's say, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and you're overheated, that's like 2 o'clock, that's the end of the Pitta cycle, and if you're overheated, that's an indication of a Pitta imbalance. So that small homemade oatmeal raisin cookie at that time classifies both.
Yeah.
It's also a good idea before going to sleep, you know, last couple hours to slow down, no electromagnetic stress, calming energies, take a shower or a bath because that purifies the physical body too. Those are all important to do, to wind down before you go to sleep, and to be in bed before 10, because if you're up at 10, you start to move into Pitta cycle, you start to get a second wind.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
If you're awake at midnight, and you start to get hungry, but the fire isn't there because the sun isn't there. And the digestive fire is related to the sun. That food doesn't break down, doesn't become healthy tissue. It becomes toxic, half-digested food. So that's important.
Right. So another person is asking about work-life balance. What kind of work hours should we keep instead of being workaholics and working all day, all night, and bring your homework? What's the ideal like work hours we should strive for?
Well, get up early, and you know, have several hours to yourself. If you stay up too late, you're not going to be able to get up early. You're not going to have any time to nurture yourself. Right. So have those few hours. You know, being to work at 9 in the morning, you know, should work for most people. And then finishing around 6 or so should work. Have a little break
Mhm.
at lunch. You know, if you
That's
can take an hour, even 2 hours at
that's
lunch,
good. That
that's nice.
sounds so normal. That sounds so good and normal, but I know other people are like, oh, I'm in the office at 8 before people come in. I'm leaving at 8 but after everyone's gone, you know. So we just need to really, yeah, get back ourselves back into balance. We have another question about moods. What do we do about teenagers who have these crazy mood swings and everything? What do we do when somebody's having a panic attack, like anxiety and stuff? Are there some Ayurvedic tools that we can use for these things?
Um, Diet is crucial. People need to eat real, fresh, homemade food with the prana intact. Because if it's all packaged, processed, you know, frozen, reheated food, the life energy, the life force, prana has been destroyed. And that won't nurture us on a deep level. Of course, the food does have the macro and the micronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals, but the prana is not there, not
Right.
measured in.
And explain to people what prana is if they haven't heard of this before.
Prana is the life force. It's nature's intelligence in the food. And from the SVA Ayurvedic tradition, prana, the life force, comes from three sources: Soma, Agni, and Marut. Soma is the cooling lunar energy from the moon, and also the energy from water on the earth and the green plants. Agni is from the sun, and Marut is the vibrational energy, electromagnetic, coming in from the pole, the north. And so those combine, and they're in nature, and that the life force is there. Different foods have prana in different proportions. Like a pear is rich in soma, it's cooling and nurturing, whereas a chili pepper is high in agni.
Yeah,
It's very
fire.
heavy.
Yeah.
And it's the energy of it. If you take the chili pepper and you put it in the freezer, it's going to be cold, but it's still going to have that pungent, hot effect. That's the
Yeah.
energetics. The
Yeah,
same.
good point.
Yeah. So eat real food, freshly prepared from scratch, if organic, if possible. And there are a whole host of Ayurvedic herbs and products, Jadamamsi, you know, Brahmi, ashwagandha, that are very effective at decreasing stress, anxiety, and panic. And the best treatment is prevention. You don't want to treat a panic attack. I mean, if it happens, treat it. You want to prevent it from occurring in the first place. And that's
Right.
done by early to bed, early to rise, nurturing real food, intelligent food. Food can be divided with the prana there. Food is either intelligent, dumb, or dead. You want to be
Mhm.
intelligent, you have to eat intelligent food. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
there's lots of
I
the other
was
stuff.
teaching I was teaching a group of high schoolers about Ayurveda and trying to tell them about junk food. And I said, junk food shouldn't be called junk food. It should be called dumb food because there's no intelligence in it. And they really got that. You know, they started to say about how it's not alive and it doesn't know where to go in your body and stuff like that. So I just wanted to point out to Tamara and Cornelia, they're asking questions about menopause and food and sleep and all that. And we're going to have a great conversation with Dr. Helen Mary Thomas about this, all about women's issues and everything. And I know a lot about that too because I'm already done with menopause, so I can give you some great Ayurvedic tips myself. So let me see. There's so many questions I want to get. What about tips for moms with little kids? Oh my gosh, yeah, moms with little kids that have to get up in the middle of the night because your little kid is asleep and then they wake up and then you have to wake up to feed them and stuff. What can moms of little kids do?
The attitude is important. So basically, the mother she's performing an invaluable, irreplaceable service to that soul, that child who chose to come here. And so it's a service. It's her spiritual. It's her dharma. It's her duty. And so done in that regard, in service to the divine soul that dwells within that small body, that is the practice. So make it a spiritual practice. And love and nurturing, that can offset a lot of the disruption. Maybe not all of it, so the mother has to nurture herself as much as possible. But it's done out of love and service.
Yes.
And that is its own reward, and that does generate ojas and immunity within our bodies, even if it may not be made in the middle of the night. But it's the energy, the love that's generated in doing that action that helps.
Yes, it's all bhakti, right? Bhakti is love in Sanskrit, and it's serving others with love. It's seeing that beautiful spirit in each person, big or small, you know, and giving them love straight from your heart. Let's see. Lena's asking if it's healthy to eat protein and carbohydrates at the same time. We hear different things, you know, with the Western diet versus the Ayurvedic diet. So, you know, I think we'll get into food combining and everything with Dr. Manisha, but what do you tell people generally about food combining?
There are some specific rules in Ayurveda, but keep in mind the concept of protein, carbohydrate, fat. It's not an Ayurvedic concept. It's the Western scientific concept. It's hard to find protein, you know, that doesn't have fat in it. And the legumes, they have carbohydrate and they have a little protein and a small amount of fat. So they're within themselves. But there are specific rules and regulations about food combining in all traditions, including Ayurveda. The main thing before the food combining is secondary, except for a couple exceptions. But you pay attention to the Agni. You feed the fire. And if you feed the fire properly, then you shouldn't have too many other issues.
Right, good. And we're having another question. A couple people want to know specifically about panic attacks and stuff. And I can address this a little bit because anxiety is a Vata disorder, correct?
Yes.
It's too much Vata in the system. And I used to get panic attacks a lot, you know, before I discovered Ayurveda. And just going on that Vata balancing routine helped my anxiety so much. So if you look at the Vata balancing routine, one of the great things is Abhyanga, which is the warm sesame oil massage. That is really good for preventing panic attacks. And also, like when you're in one, I think it's a good idea to just get back to that warm and oily, get grounded, you know, sit on the ground, on the grass, get back to nature, you know, kind of feel that earth under you. Because Vata is air and space, and so we're so up in the air and our thoughts are just going, so we need to get grounded. Mm-hmm. So do you have any other advice for Vata balancing tips for people?
Follow the diet, follow the lifestyle, be regular in routines, and always carry herbs. If someone is prone to panic attack, your little safety patch is a little bit of water and some herbs. Ashwagandha, Brahmi, Jadamamsi, those will knock it out. So
excellent.
So if you're taking those on a regular basis, you're probably not going to have a lot of anxiety anyway. But if you then you have those, and you pop it in your mouth, you chew it, take a sip of water, hold it in your mouth so it gets absorbed immediately through the mouth, and then swallow it within a minute. That should knock it out.
Exactly. Good. Yeah. See, I take Ayurvedic herbs like Amrit every morning, every evening. So, you know, I think it's just part of my routine, and I don't think anything else of it. I love it. I love it. So that's good. Someone else is asking, what about arthritis? Is that there's so many different kinds of arthritis. There's different kinds for each dosha, right? So wouldn't it be just a matter of figuring out which imbalances for the person with arthritis. What do you say about that?
Yes, we treat the underlying cause, the underlying. See, in Ayurveda, we don't really treat the Western disease. What we
Right.
treat is underlying imbalance, the doshic imbalance. And so there is an overlap. So degenerative arthritis is wear and tear type of arthritis where you get bone spurs and so on. And that's typically the joint dries out. It's a vata imbalance. So pacify it with vata preventative measures. Psoriatic
Great.
arthritis, inflammatory arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, these are more Pitta type inflammatory conditions. And they're
Mm,
treated by following a Pitta regime to
right.
decrease Pitta, to pacify Pitta.
Good.
But
That's
prevention
fantastic.
is,
That's fantastic. Well, you know what, you guys, our time is up. The hour just flew by so quickly. Mark, thank you so much for being just so wise and wonderful to all of us and imparting this great information about Ayurveda. Since you and I both love Ayurveda, so it's so fun. I could talk to you all night. And that we're limiting our time because everybody's got to go eat dinner and everything else, right? Live our lives.
yes.
But we will be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking with Melanie Sachs about Ayurveda and beauty tomorrow. So if you're looking for beauty tips, skincare, hair care, all kinds of anti-aging tips, things like that. How do we care for ourselves from the inside out and the outside in? You'll definitely want to tune in tomorrow when I speak with Melanie Sachs. She's the author of Ayurvedic Beauty Secrets, and she has a lot to share with us. So I will see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks. Thank you, Mark.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. Okay.
Where's the off switch?